Greetings. One of the unfortunate things that has happened in the United States is that our secret buffer, that in terms of a fiscal safety net that's deeper than we previously thought, has been wasted. In the 1990s, it was often said that when the national debt to the United States crosses 100% of GDP, we are in trouble because there were certain assumptions about the growth rate of taxation of the economy and future interest rates at that time. Now, because of third millennium economics, formerly known as the atom, there is an ambient technological deflation which keeps interest rates lower than might have otherwise been the case, and the rate of growth of wealth in the economy higher. And this is different from GDP, but the stock market is rising at a rate faster than GDP to a greater extent than before. And therefore, this 100% of GDP threshold for the national debt has been crossed with no ill effects. And now we are going higher, 125%, 130%, 135%. The United States had a secret fiscal buffer that we didn't know we had, and that could have been very useful in a real crisis. And instead, we are spending that just for the purpose of buying votes for this deep state, this uniparty. What do I mean by that? Well, look at this chart. In the year 2000, not that long ago, most of you watching this are old enough to remember the year 2000, so I'm not talking about 1913 or something like that. In the year 2000, the federal government budget of the United States was $1.85 trillion. As of 2019, it was already growing faster than the rest of the economy as measured in nominal GDP terms, 4.7% a year. And by 2019, it was $4.4 trillion. Okay, that is faster growth than ideal, but still not completely out of control. Then this COVID-19 situation hit, and while that was a pandemic and a crisis to some extent, there was a ready phalanx of entities, individuals, corporations, and organizations who are lined up to profit from that in a variety of different ways. And because they're profiting so much, government spending did not go down after the immediate COVID-19 increase. This increase, of course, was facilitated by the Federal Reserve's money printing because they print money in a manner that is not diffuse. They only buy mortgage-backed securities and treasuries, which is why the only two things that happen with quantitative easing is home prices going up and government spending increasing, and then whatever percolates out from that to the other 90% of the population who does not immediately benefit from those two things, hopefully they get something. That's the idea of these PhD economists, because they're too theoretical to realize that this is not prudent. So this government spending is not going down. It is now 6.9 trillion in 2024. COVID-19 is over. It's been over for a couple of years. The 2021 amount may have been high, but then it should have fallen back to whatever the trend line was, even at a 2019 level. Not that that is the best possible level. Why not just a 2000 level of government spending? The US CPI has grown only 79% from 2000 to 2024. That means that only 79% is what the government spending increase should be, meaning that government spending of the federal government would have fallen as a percentage of GDP just by keeping up with the CPI. And from 1.85 trillion, 79% increase of that would have been, 3.35 trillion or something like that. Instead, it is twice that amount, 6.9 trillion. And that is why the national debt is crossing thresholds of GDP percentage that everyone thought in the past would have been catastrophic. This is bad news. It is evidence of the accelerating rate of change in that when 100% of GDP in terms of national debt did not cause a crisis, that shows that the gradient of economic growth is faster than what anyone thought it would be when they made these models in the 80s and 90s. But then we squandered a buffer. We had an extra several $1 trillion of fiscal buffer that could have been preserved for a real crisis. Instead, it has been squandered in a manner of gluttonous fiscal greed, partly to buy votes for the election to keep the uniparty in power, and they're acting as though the next crisis can just be printed away and it's an excuse for government spending to occur. What if there's another crisis similar to the COVID-19 crisis in a couple years' time, or even a few years' time? Will government spending rise another 50% then as well? Will all the money printing that is needed to be done just to offset inflation take the form of more treasuries and mortgage-backed securities that then get expanded into more fiscal government spending for vote buying? I'm afraid that's the trajectory that we're on. We are not getting to a more enlightened form of governance where government is seen as a utility, and that the percentage of the economy devoted to governance as a utility gradually keeps dropping over time, just like the price of food and the price of energy has been dropping over time as a percentage of total household expenditure. To see videos that support that, see this one in the upper right-hand corner about how food prices have been dropping for many decades. And then see this one about how energy prices have also been shrinking as a percentage of household income for many decades. In fact, it has shrunk by more than half from 1959 to present. And thirdly, see this video about how government should be thought of as a utility and should also be shrinking as a percentage of the total economy under the paradigm of it being a utility. It should not be a graft processing mechanism, because the people in charge are intent to see how far they can go before breaking the system, and the answer, unfortunately, is a lot further than they thought. A national debt that is 125%, 130%, 135% of US GDP has still not caused collapse, but they're intent on seeing what that real limit is. And in the process, they're squandering a valuable buffer that could have served us well in the next crisis. Something to think about, and something that future historians will study in great detail when they see how the United States finally defaulted on its government obligations and did not have any buffer to deal with whatever real crisis happened in the near future from our point of view. Thanks for watching.